Hello, everybody. Welcome to Human Physiology online video lectures. And today we're covering the introduction to the human body. Just keep in mind that this lecture was created using multiple resources. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so what is anatomy and what is physiology? Anatomy is a study of the structure of body parts and their relationship to one another, when physiology is a study of the function of body parts, how they work to carry out life-sustaining activities. This class is physiology class, so we mostly will focus on functions of body parts. However, we will include some morphology and structure of organs and organ system to better understand how they work. As any branch of science, physiology has different parts, different branches. Cellular physiology, for example, study biochemical and biophysical processes occurring within a cell, such as cellular respiration, and you probably heard about it. The major function of cellular respiration is to create molecule called ATP, and this is a molecule that is used by your cells as a source of energy. Another example that cellular physiology will study include active transport and passive transport across cell membrane or protein synthesis. Another branch of physiology is systemic or organ physiology. When we're looking not at individual cells and not even tissue or organs, but on an entire organ system, such as your cardiovascular system or respiratory, digestive, and systemic physiology focuses on regulation of physiological processes within the body by homeostasis. That homeostasis is constant state. And this homeostasis is maintained by homeostatic reflexes. So when we're talking about organ system, for example, and we are in anatomy class, we will mostly focus on what are those organs that make this system, where they're located, how they related to one another. In the physiology, we mostly will talk about how does organ system maintain homeostasis in your body and what are the principles that are used to keep your internal environment constant. Right, so that's a systemic physiology. Now, when we talk about systemic organ systems, so subdivisions are based on 11 organ systems: integumentary, skeletal, muscular, nervous, endocrine, cardiovascular, lymphatic, or immune. So you see these two names for the same system. In anatomy, we're referring to this system as lymphatic. In physiology, most often we name it immune, but lymphatic is the lymphatic mostly will talk about structures and organs of the system. Immunity, we will look at how your body fights infections, protects you from cancerous cells, and so on. Right? So just keep in mind, this is the same system, just two different names. Another system is respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive. So those are all systemic physiology. Now, anatomy and physiology are inseparable. Functions always reflect structure, and what structure can do depends on its specific form. This is the key principle of human anatomy and physiology, and this principle is known as complementarity of structure and function. And that tells you that if you know the structure, you can predict what function of the structure can be. your tissues, your organs, your system build to perform its specific function, right? The analogy would be if you need to buy a car or rent a car to move your furniture, you're not gonna rent a Corvette to move your refrigerator, for example, from one place to another. You're gonna rent a truck. So you can see how a structure of a car tells you what possible function this car can perform for you, right? If it's Corvette, it's probably not good to carry a heavy refrigerator. You might need a truck. The same with your organs and tissues. So, for example, even if you look at the heart, and heart is the organ, right? So it has a atria, 2 atria, and 2 ventricles, right? And you have those space inside ventricles and inside atria. So why would you have space inside your car? Inside your heart? Because your blood will return inside atria, inside the space. So you need a space for blood to return. Then your blood will flow from atria to ventricle, and you will have very thick muscles making ventricles of your heart. Why? Because you need them to contract and pump the blood, right? So you cannot imagine your heart being, for example, like your liver without inner spaces, because heart must have chambers to allow blood to fill your heart, your blood flow inside your heart, and then you need to pump this blood out, right? So obviously the heart should have different structure compared to your liver because they have different functions, right? So that's what principle of complementarity of structure and function tells you. Now, what structure is will be always reflected in that function that the structure can perform. Okay, so also in this chapter, we will cover medical images. Those are planes of the body with corresponding medical resonance image or MRI that are presented on this slide. So in anatomy, you probably already learned about planes. Those are imaginary planes that cut your body into sections. And we have 3 major planes. So this the first one is mid-sagittal or medial planes that divide your body into right and left parts. And here's the corresponding image of MRI. So you can see spinal vertebral column. You see abdominal, part of the abdominal and pelvic cavity represented by this median or mid-sagittal plane. The second plane shown here is frontal or coronal, and it divides your body into anterior or front and posterior and back. And here's corresponding image. And you have a transverse plane that divides your body into superior and inferior part. And the section that it's produced called a cross section. And you can see cross section shown in MRI image. Right, so if we go back to frontal, you see lungs over here, the heart, you can see a liver and a spleen and a stomach. And you see the same organs like liver, or maybe, here's a spleen, but now at cross section or mid-sagittal section. So you can see here that they look different, right? That's why it's important to understand that creating those magnetic imaging, what plane are we using to see the organs? So we will go over some of these techniques and we will see how they're used. I'm going to start with X-ray. X-rays is used for different scans or different images of the body. We can use X-ray to see bones and teeth. Right? and to see some soft tissues. But to see some soft tissues, for example, as shown over here, this is the renal angiogram. So that's a liver, and you can see blood vessels that supplies that liver. So to see soft tissue, we need to use a dye. So dye in the bloodstream, for example, allow us to see blood vessels. And this dye, we call it contrast medium. Also, another scan that use X-ray is CT or CAT. It uses X-ray in 360 planes of the body, and body is looped into sections. Like here, our cross section of the abdominal cavity. Oh no, I'm sorry, because it shows us lungs, so it is thoracic cavity. Right, so X-ray is used in angiogram to see soft tissues, and CT scan to see also, you can also see the soft tissues in planes, and plus you can use X-ray to see bones and teeth. Okay, so that was X-ray. MRI is magnetic resonance image. Very often it's used for images of brain, and it has some limitations. For example, it cannot be used for person with pacemaker or metal joints, because MRI, as you can see from the name, use magnetic field. It's a very strong magnetic field, and if person have pacemaker, it can damage it, so it's not going to work. And of course, magnetic field attracts metal parts. If somebody has metal parts in the body, MRI cannot be used. But rather than that, MRI is pretty good method. You can use to see soft tissues. Another disadvantage of MRI is that it's more expensive than CAT scan, and it's require longer time for a patient to be inside that MRI machine. If CT scan takes couple minutes, it might take like 10, sometimes even less minutes. MRI take 45, 30, 45, and sometimes even longer. So you cannot really use MRI for emergency situation. So for example, if you have a patient with a stroke and patient is delivered to emergency room, so if they suspect patient to have a stroke, they're gonna use CT scan to verify if there is a clot inside blood vessels or some other problem. So they're gonna use CT scan. However, if you have a patient with a brain tumor, then you probably prescribe or you will send this patient to do MRI, because brain tumor is not an emergency, and MRI will give you a better image compared to CT scan. Ultrasound is the safest produced image called sonogram. And also we can use ultrasound to see heart and blood vessels, and then we produce echocardiogram. Because it's the safest technique, it doesn't use X-rays, it doesn't use this magnetic field. Ultrasound very often used to see the fetus inside the uterus. So it's shown on this picture, for example. However, ultrasound has very low resolution, and image is not clear compared to MRI or CT scan. PET scan, positron emission tomography. When radioisotopes are injected into a body and they emit particles called positrons. Those positrons collide with electrons in body tissues and release gamma rays similar to X-rays. Those gamma rays then relate to a computer which construct PET scan. PET provide information of function rather than structure. All right, so now for PET scan, we will also use, we will need to inject a patient with a special solution. Very often it's just solution of sugar. So we give a patient, we inject patient with solution of sugar, and then we will see what cells in the body use a lot of the sugar for their metabolic purposes. So if you know the cancerous cells, they are very metabolically active. They require lots of energy because they divide very frequently, so they need a lot of sugar, and they will be very they're gonna use that sugar a lot, and you will see how this gamma rays create almost a glow in the area where patient have cancer. So if you see CT scan of the same region, so that's the liver and kidney, and the patient had a metastasis in the liver, but you see really nothing on CT scan. However, a PET scan show you this area very well. So it's hard to see on CT, but easy on a PET scan. A PET scan also used to study functions of brain. Okay, so here's our technologies that we covered, their advantages, disadvantages, and common use. So CT is fast, detailed image in 3 dimensions, requires the most radiation, however, and this is disadvantage. A chest CT is equivalent to about 100 chest X-rays. So you can see, compared to X-ray, it really uses lots of harmful radiation. It's used to detecting solid tumors and other problems in the abdomen and chest. Again, it's a common use. We can use CT for to do image of a brain as well. MRI or magnetic resonance imaging can be more detailed than CT and uses no radiation. Those are advantages. Disadvantages: more expensive than CT, requires patients to remain still for half an hour or more, and common use detecting brain abnormalities and diagnosing soft tissue injuries. Ultrasound: cheapest than CT and uses no radiation. However, have lower image quality than CT, with effectiveness largely depends on technical skills. So it's really very difficult to read the image. And common use: fetal ultrasound and diagnosing appendicitis in children. So if it's safest one, that's the one we want to use on kids. X-ray: fast and cheap with a relatively low radiation dose. Provides, however, only 2D image with far less detail than other methods, and used to diagnose broken bones, pneumonia, and intestinal blockage, right? So this is all different technologies that used to see the pathological changes within the organs, and all of them, of course, have advantages and some disadvantages. Right. So let's move to the structural organization of human body. Human body is very organized from the smallest chemical level to whole organism level. And if we start from smallest to largest, we begin with chemical level that includes atoms, molecules, and organelles. Then cellular level is a single cell. Tissue level, groups of similar cells. Organ level contains 2 or more types of tissue. Organ system level, organs that work closely together. And organismal level, all organ systems that combine to make the whole organism. All right, so we're going to start with atom and molecules. As we said, they will make macromolecules, and macromolecules will form organelles. Now, organelles make a cell. All living organisms are made of cells, either one or multiple. Human are multicellular, so we're made of many cells. Then similar cells with common function make tissues. Humans have 4 major types of tissue. epithelial tissue, connective, nervous, and muscle. Then if we have a structure that made of 2 or more tissue types, we call it organs. Organs like your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your brain, then organs that work closely together make your organ systems. For example, your heart and blood vessels make cardiovascular system. Your brain, spinal cord, and nerves make your nervous system. And then this 11 organ system that we just mentioned previously make entire organism. And how well you feel, what your health is, what problems you're having depends on your organ system, on your organs, on your tissues, and finally on every single cell in your body. So we say that how well the entire organism function depends on how well individual cells within that organism work. Okay, so here's the diagram that shows this principle of organization when we start with the atoms and molecules and cells and organs and get to entire organisms. So you see we go from smaller to a larger. Necessary life functions include maintaining of boundaries between internal and external environment. So for your cells to stay alive, it must have plasma or cell membrane. So the plasma or cell membrane gonna separate what is outside your cell from what is inside, right? So it's gonna separate your external and internal environment of individual cells. And your skin, for example, also maintains those boundaries. They cover your body and it separates your internal environment from what you have outside, right? So we cannot survive without skin. Our cells cannot survive without plasma membrane. That's why maintaining of boundaries is one of the necessary functions of life. Another function is movement. When we talk about movement of large organs, we call it contractility, or not even large organs. For example, within your muscle cells, you have actin and myosin. Those are contractile proteins that perform different physical and chemical activities that allow your muscles to contract. Right, so when we talk about contractility, we talk about body parts like skeletal muscles or cardiac muscles contract within your heart, or smooth muscles within your GI tract, for example. But movement is way more than contractility. Movement also will include movement of different molecules inside and outside of your cells, then also movement of some, cilia maybe. So if your cells have a cilia, they will move and push mucus along the surface. Your sperm moves toward the egg. So movement does include contractility, but it's we have a variety of movements, not just the movement of body parts or movement of your heart. So movement is necessary life function. Responsiveness, the ability to sense and respond to stimuli, include, for some example, withdrawal reflex. And withdrawal reflex is, well, when you touch something hot, for example, you're cooking and you're touching a hot frying pan, you immediately will move your hand away and maybe even drop that frying pan and save yourself from skin burn. So that's a withdrawal reflex, when you take away your body part from dangerous stimuli. Also, another responsiveness is, example of responsiveness is control of breathing rate. So when you're sleeping, you can expect your breathing rate to go down, and when you're running, your breathing rate will go up, and that's how you respond to different stimuli. So either you're sleeping and you're relaxing, or you exercising, you activating your sympathetic nervous system, right? So that's responsiveness is your ability to change some parameters within your body. Another necessary function is digestion. Digestion is breakdown of ingested foodstuff, and this is a digestion really relative to animal kingdom, and we are from animal kingdom, so that's related to human physiology. Of course, some living organisms, they do not digest. They might perform different function to supply their cells with food, but not digestion. Because digestion, specifically, it's a breakdown of the foodstuff and absorption of simple molecules into blood. Right, that's what digestion is. But for human organism, it's an important function necessary for life. Oops, I'm trying to change my slide. Another function is metabolism. Metabolism includes all chemical reactions that occur in body cells. So metabolism, it includes two processes, catabolism and anabolism. Now, catabolism is a chemical reaction that splits large molecules into small building blocks. And anabolism is opposite to catabolism. When your cells link smaller molecules together to make larger molecules. So you either break larger organic molecules or you build large organic molecules. So catabolism and anabolism make metabolism of your body. Excretion is another function. It's a removal of waste from metabolism. So when your cells carry on these chemical reactions, they're going to produce waste product, and those waste product, like for example, carbon dioxide, right? That's need to be removed from your body, right? So carbon dioxide will be removed, or urea, that's another waste product, or even feces. Whatever you do not digest and absorb, those food residues need to be excreted from your body for you to function properly. Reproduction, another function necessary for life. It can be production of offsprings, but it also can be cellular division. Your cells reproduce for growth and repair. And growth is also function of living organism. Growth include increase in size of a body part or of an organism. Right, so those were function necessary for you to stay alive, right? Okay, now let's go look at survival needs. So we know we need functions to survive. Let me just go back and show you very quickly all these functions necessary for life. So again, maintaining of boundaries, movement, responsiveness, digestion, metabolism, excretion, reproduction, and growth, right? So that's life functions. Now we have survival needs. So to carry on those life functions, what do you need? Well, you need nutrients. Those are chemicals for energy and cell building. Nutrients include carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, and vitamins. You also need oxygen. Oxygen is essential for energy release for production of ATP. Now, brain cells are especially sensitive to lack of oxygen because of their requirement for high and steady production of ATP. Brain damage is likely within 5 minutes without oxygen, and death is likely within 10 minutes. So that's how oxygen is extremely important for our survival needs. You know, without oxygen, how long can we live, right? Well, the first cells that gonna die are actually gonna be neurons. Neurons, because they require constant production of ATP, and oxygen is needed for ATP production. So within 10 minutes, the whole organism will die. And within 5 minutes, neurons start dying. So that will tell you, yes, definitely oxygen is needed for survival. So nutrients, oxygen, water, of course, water, most abundant chemical in the body, site of chemical reaction. Yes, maybe you can live a little bit longer without water compared to oxygen, but still dehydration is extremely dangerous. And if water supply will not be renewed, if you cannot get enough water, then your cells start dying. You also need normal body temperature. Temperature affects rate of chemical reaction. Actually, when temperature goes up too high, that will cause denature of very important enzymes and proteins in your body. And when those enzymes and proteins are damaged, when they lose their shape, all chemical reactions will shut down. Reactions within your cells, if reaction shuts down, then your cells start dying. That's why normal body temperature is essential. And appropriate atmospheric pressure, you need it for adequate breathing and gas exchange in the lungs. Right, so I will go back again just to show you the our survival needs and what they include. So survival needs will include nutrients, such as carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, vitamins, oxygen for ATP production, water, normal body temperature, and appropriate atmospheric pressure. Okay, and now we will talk about the main concept of physiology, that is homeostasis. Now, homeostasis is a relatively stable internal environment despite continuous outside changes. It's a dynamic state of equilibrium. And dynamic means those in external environment is changing all the time. So your homeostasis is never just a line, right? It's never, your parameters are never the same. They fluctuate. So, for example, your body temperature, it always goes up, goes down, up and down. So that's what your organs and system works hard to keep it at the base line. So when it's go up, your body system will return it back down. When it's go too much down, they will bring it up. So that's what dynamic means. Dynamic means it's constantly changing, but your organ works hard to keep it within very limited parameters. And if we cannot keep homeostasis, that's what we call a disease. So the person has a disease or illness when his or her body cannot return parameters back to normal range. And if we out of homeostasis for long enough time, then organism might die. And at death, when everybody dies, right, at some point, so when person dies, that means we out of homeostasis now for good, right? So homeostasis involves continuous monitoring and regulation of many factors that is we call variables. Nervous and endocrine system accomplish the communication between the rest of your body system via nerve impulses and hormones, and nervous and endocrine systems are major systems that control homeostasis. However, to maintain homeostasis, you need all body system to work together. So if you have nervous and endocrine system and you don't have cardiovascular systems that work hard to keep your parameters constant, then you still might end up with illness and very dangerous condition. So nervous and endocrine system control homeostasis. However, all 11 body systems work together to maintain homeostasis. Now, how exactly your body control this constant internal environment? You control it through the control mechanism or homeostatic arc. And this mechanism includes a receptor or sensor that monitors the environment, responds to stimuli, changes in controlled variables, and sends signal to control center along afferent pathway. So for example, if temperature outside goes up, you have your receptors, sensory receptors in your skin that gonna respond to this change in a temperature, and they will send signal to your brain. So receptors in your skin will send signals through afferent pathway to your brain. Now your brain in this example gonna be control center. So you always must have receptors and control center. Control center determines the set point. So it will see like, okay, temperature goes up. And as a result, body temperature goes up. But what is my set point? Well, my set point is 37 degrees Celsius, right? So is it above this or not? And how much above the temperature is? So that's why control center will determine the set point at which the variable is maintained. It will receive input from the receptors, so receptors. It determines appropriate response, and it will send signals now to effector along efferent pathway. Then effector will be, for example, your muscles and glands that will receive output from control center, provide the means to respond, and response acts to reduce or enhance the stimulus. And when we reduce the stimulus or enhance, we call it feedback. But when we reduce, we call it negative feedback. When we enhance, we call it positive feedback. Right, so here's the example. So you have a stimulus that produces changes in a variable. So for example, again, outside temperature goes up and it produces changes in your body temperature. Now your body is out of balance. Now why you have receptors that will detect the change. So receptors sense input, so information to control center. And this, the pathway from receptor to control center called afferent pathway. Then control center, after it receives the input, it will compare the information to set points, and it will send output through what we call efferent pathway, right? Or efferent or efferent. So we have afferent and efferent. So, and this output will be information that's sent along efferent pathway to the effector. And effector will produce response. So it will respond to reduce the effect of stimulus and return variable to homeostatic level. So this is our homeostatic arc or homeostasis control mechanism. So again, it includes receptor, control center, and effector. And receptor communicates with control center through afferent pathway, and control center communicates with effector through efferent pathway. So negative feedback. It's a response that reduces or shuts off the effects of the original stimulus. It's most common and essential for maintaining of homeostasis. So example of negative feedback would be regulation of body temperature, that is a nervous mechanism, and regulation of blood volume by ADH, antidiuretic hormone, and this is endocrine mechanism. So we have nervous mechanism and we can have endocrine mechanism that will reduce or shuts off the stimulus. That means if your temperature goes up, you want to put it down. That's a negative feedback. If your blood volume goes up, for example, you want to decrease it. That's also negative feedback, and vice versa. If blood volume goes down, you want to increase it. If temperature goes down, you want to decrease it, right? So you work in opposite to this, what stimulus produces. Right, so here's our, so again, review of negative feedback loop. When we have stimulus, then a sensor to sense the stimulus, sensor to control center to effector, and then effector will reduce the stimulus. Like your body temperature exceeds 37 degrees, nerve cells in skin and brain will detect the change. Now it's above 37, gonna send this information to your brain in a temperature regulatory center, and the brain will send information to sweat glands to start secrete sweat, and that will cools you down. So then your body temperature hopefully go back to normal, right? So that's a negative feedback mechanism. And here's kind of like pictures that give you more understanding how your body temperature is regulated. So when temperature rises, receptors, temperature-sensitive receptors in skin and brain send information through the afferent pathway to your control center. That is actually your thermoregulatory center in the brain. Now the brain gonna compare the information that is received to the set point, and information will be set along a efferent pathway to the effector. In this situation are your sweat glands. If sweat glands are activated, you will produce response. Evaporation of sweat will cool you down. Body temperature falls and stimulus ends. However, if your body temperature falls, you have receptors in skin, in brain that will sense this change in the environment, gonna send again information through the afferent pathway to the brain, thermoregulatory center. The brain will compare information received to the set point. Is it 37 or it's below it? Send information through efferent pathway to effectors. But look, in this situation, effectors are skeletal muscles. So you start shivering and it will warm you up. So body temperature raises and stimulus ends. So you're back to homeostasis. Right, so you see, effector in this situation are your sweat glands if you're too hot, and in a situation when you're cold, effectors are skeletal muscles. So when you shiver, you warm your body up and return back to normal temperature. So that's maintaining of homeostasis, negative feedback. We do have positive feedbacks when the response enhances or exaggerates the original stimulus, that may exhibit cascade or amplifying effects. For example, positive feedback can damage your organs even more. So let's say your heart is weak, or we have a patient with weak heart. The heart cannot contract properly, so the cardiac output or amount of blood that heart can pump decreases, and this will result in even less oxygen delivery to heart muscle itself, so it weakens heart even more. So that's what this cascade or amplifying effect. Usually positive feedback controls infrequent events. For example, labor contraction by oxytocin or platelet plug formation and blood clotting. So I think I have an example over here. So that's an example of positive feedback during labor contraction. So when baby is ready to be born, baby gonna push on a cervix, gonna push on the cervix of uterus. So here's the cervix. So when baby pushes, we have stretch receptors here. Those stretch receptors are activated. They send signal to the brain, and instead of reducing of contraction, we don't want contraction to stop, right? Your brain gonna secrete oxytocin. And oxytocin, well, it's not your brain, it's pituitary gland that is located in your cranial cavity. So pituitary gland will secrete oxytocin, and oxytocin gonna stimulate uterine contraction and pushes baby towards cervix even more. So head pushes even more. So again, nerve impulses to the brain. Brain stimulates pituitary gland to secrete more oxytocin. So you actually you secrete more and more and more oxytocin. So you exaggerate the effect until baby is born, stimulus is reduced, and then oxytocin will go back to normal. So you can see that's an example of exaggerating of the stimulus instead of shutting it off. Okay, so here's our disturbance of homeostasis that increases risk of disease. So if we cannot keep homeostasis, then we might end up with a disease. With the aging, when we get older, of course, it's contribute to disturbance of homeostasis. And as we already mentioned, positive feedback can take over. As I just told you, example, heart failure. So here, when the heart is not functioning properly, it will decrease cardiac output. And so it will decrease cardiac output. And that's amount of blood that pump by the heart. And if you don't pump enough enough blood by the heart, you reduce amount of oxygen that delivered to all your organs, including to your heart again. So heart get even weaker. So that's our positive feedback taking over. That can lead to heart failure and as a result, the death of organism. Okay, so here we compare negative and positive feedbacks. So negative feedback, the final effect are negative, opposite to the stimulus. Finally, it ensures stability of the system. It's used frequently. It's directed to maintain parameters within normal range. It reduces the change. It increases or decreases the change in a normal, back to the normal value. It usually helps maintain homeostatic function, and it is most often associated with maintaining good health and restoring homeostasis. When positive feedback, the original stimulus is encouraged rather than negated. It is a reason for speedy loss of internal stability, used less frequently. Instead of inhibiting the original stimulus, it usually increases the deviation from the normal value and promotes abnormal levels. It is rarely used to maintain homeostatic functions, and it is related with vicious cycles, which could even lead to death, right? But it doesn't mean it's positive feedback is something that is not necessary. Without positive feedback, if you cut yourself, you cannot stop bleeding. So to stop bleeding after cut, your body uses positive feedback. Babies cannot born without positive feedback. We cannot nourish our young, so milk cannot be produced by mammary glands without positive feedback, right? It just says that it's less frequent and it takes your body out of homeostasis, away from homeostasis for a short period of time when you need it, right? Okay, so that's our negative and positive feedbacks. And the last part of this chapter is actually organ systems. So we're gonna quickly look at 11 organ systems and their major organs and functions, organs of those systems and their function. Now, an organ system is a group of organs that work together to perform one or more function. Now, on this diagram here, you can see some of the system and how they work together. to keep you alive. Right, so you see make sure I didn't turn off my recording. So that's represent your skin. That is the boundaries of your body that regulates what goes inside and outside of your body. You have your digestive system here with mouth and anus. So the food goes in, you digest and absorb it, and indigestible residues you passes as a feces. Now, nutrients from your GI tract will be absorbed into bloodstream. So here's your cardiovascular system that will carry those nutrients to all your cells and all your organs. Your blood also will pick up oxygen. So here's your respiratory system, will deliver oxygen to the lungs. Oxygen will move to your bloodstream and deliver to cells and organs with blood. At the same time, carbon dioxide from bloodstream will be released into alveoli of the lungs, and you will exhale it. And because your cells will carry on chemical reactions, and they will make waste product of metabolic product, those waste product move to a bloodstream, and your blood takes it to your kidneys, and your kidneys will eliminate those nitrogenous waste and excess ions in urine. Right, so this is just some body system like integumentary, digestive, cardiovascular, respiratory, urinary, but you also need all other systems, like you need nervous and endocrine system to allow communication between these body systems, allow control. Right, you need your lymphatic system that is not shown here. You need your reproductive system. All right, so let's look at the integumentary system. Major organs, skin, hair, and nails, forms external body covering and protects deeper tissue from injury, also synthesize vitamin D, and houses cutaneous receptors such as pain receptor, pressure receptors, and also sweat and oil glands. Oops. Systems that perform body movement include skeletal system, major organs, bones, and joints, protects and supports body organs, and provides framework for muscles to use to produce movement. So bones are levers for your muscles. So your muscles move your bones. Blood cells are also formed within bones, and bones store minerals. Muscular system, that's a system of movement. It allows you to move within the space and manipulate your environment. Also provide you with facial expression. Muscular system maintains posture and produces heat, and major organs are skeletal muscles. Nervous system, major organs, brain, spinal cord, nerves. Nervous system is fast-acting control system of the body. It responds to internal and external changes by activating appropriate muscles and glands. Endocrine system, another system of control, includes endocrine organs or glands. That's how we call them. Example, pineal gland, pituitary gland, adrenal gland, even ovaries and testes considered to be part of endocrine system because they produce hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. So glands secrete hormones that regulate processes such as growth, reproduction, and nutrient use or metabolism by body cells. So nervous and endocrine are both control systems. Cardiovascular system, major organs, heart, blood vessels. So blood vessels transport blood, which carry oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, waste, and etc. And the heart pumps blood. Lymphatic system or immune system picks up, let's say, major organs. We have lymphatic vessels and spleen, that organ of the lymphatic system. Also thymus, gland located on top of the heart, and red bone marrow inside your bones. Lymphatic system picks up fluid leaked from blood vessels and returns it to blood, disposes of debris in the lymphatic stream, houses white blood cells, lymphocytes involved in immunity. The immune response mounts the attack against foreign substances within the body. Respiratory system, major organs, nasal cavity, pharynx, that is your throat, larynx, your voice box, trachea, bronchi, lungs. Respiratory system keeps blood constantly supplied with oxygen and removes carbon dioxide. The gaseous exchange occurs within the walls of the air sacs of the lungs. Digestive system, major organs, oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus, and also includes liver, pancreas, gallbladder. Digestive system breaks down food and absorbable units that enter the blood for distribution to body cells. Indigestible foodstuffs are eliminated as feces. Urinary system, major organs, kidney, ureters, urinary bladder, urethra, eliminates nitrogenous waste from the body and regulate water, electrolyte, and acid-base balance of the blood. And reproductive system. We have male and female reproductive system. Major organs of male system include testes, penis, prostate gland, a system of ducts. Major organs of female reproductive system include ovary, uterus, vagina, uterine tubes. This overall function is production of offsprings. Testes also produce sperm and male sex hormones, and male ducts and gonads aid in the delivery of sperm to the female reproductive tract. Ovaries produce eggs and female sex hormones. The remaining female structures serve as site for fertilization and development of the feces. Mammary glands of female breast produce milk to nourish the newborn. So organs of the major organs of reproductive system, like the main organs, include testes and ovaries. And they produce sperm and ova. Those are gametes that allow us to have offspring. But also testes and ovaries are part of endocrine system because they produce endocrine hormones. Okay, so that was the last slide in this lecture. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful. And I see you next time.